The screen door slammed like a gunshot in the sticky Alabama dusk, shattering the humid silence as 16-year-old Caleb Hayes tumbled backward onto the splintered porch boards, his backpack spilling clothes and a dog-eared copy of The Catcher in the Rye across the dust. "You're dead to us, boy, dead." His father's voice thundered from inside, raw with Bible-thumped fury, while his mother's sobs choked the air like a final, futile prayer. In that split-second sprawl, Caleb's world cracked open, not with tears, but with a cold, electric clarity. He was free, even if it meant starving under the stars. He didn't run far that first night. Just to the edge of the gravel drive, where the fireflies danced like mocking lanterns over the peanut fields. Curled against a rusted tractor tire, he replayed the fight in jagged loops. The stolen kiss with Tommy behind the bleachers at school football practice, the whispers that slithered through the congregation like kudzu. His father's belt cracking against the kitchen table as he roared about abominations and eternal flames. Caleb had always known, deep in his gut, that the softness he felt for boys wasn't a phase. It was him, woven into his bones like the red clay under his nails. But knowing and confessing, that was a line he'd crossed on a dare from his own breaking heart. By dawn, his throat was sandpaper, and the gnawing in his belly had turned to knives. He hitched a ride into town on the back of Mr. Hargrove's feed truck, the old man's sideways glance heavy with pity but light on questions. Dothan wasn't big, barely a blip on the map south of Montgomery, but it felt like a coliseum of stairs as Caleb shuffled into the Piggly Wiggly, palms sweaty on a crumpled $5 bill from his sock drawer. He bought a pack of off-brand crackers and a warm Coke, then lingered by the payphones, dialing numbers he half-remembered from church directories. No one answered. Not Aunt Rita, not Cousin Dale. Blood was thicker than mercy, apparently. That's when she found him. Margaret Ellis, 52 and built like the oak trees she pruned at the local nursery, was restocking her cart with canning jars when she spotted the boy slumped against the soda machine, his jeans caked in field dirt, eyes hollow as the peanut hulls littering the parking lot. She'd seen runaways before, kids chewed up by the Bible Belt's sharper edges, but something in Caleb's defiant slump, the way he clutched that backpack like a shield, tugged at her. Margaret wasn't queer herself. She'd buried a husband to cancer a decade back and raised 2 daughters who flew the coop for Atlanta's brighter lights. But she'd marched in the 60s, buried friends to AIDS in the 80s, and knew the sting of being cast out for loving wrong. "You look like you could use a square meal. Sugar," she said, her voice a warm drawl that cut through the fluorescent hum. Caleb flinched, expecting a sermon, but she just held out a ham sandwich wrapped in wax paper. "Name's Margaret. What's yours?" He ate in her battered Ford pickup on the ride to her place, a sagging Victorian on the outskirts, porch swing creaking under wisteria vines. She didn't pry, just talked about the azaleas she was nursing back from a late frost, her calloused hands gesturing like she was painting the air. By the time they pulled up, Caleb had mumbled his name and the basics, kicked out, no folks to claim him, gay as a picnic basket in June. Margaret nodded, like it was the weather report. "Well, darlin', this house has room. And rules, help in the garden, no lyin', and we eat family style at 6. She paused at the door, key in the lock. "You stay as long as you need. World's cruel enough without folks piling on." Those first weeks blurred into a rhythm of tentative grace. Caleb woke to the rooster's crow and Margaret's coffee brewing strong as tar, black and bitter enough to chase nightmares. He weeded the flower beds, his hands learning the language of soil, soft loam for the impatiens, gritty sand for the succulents. She taught him to propagate roses from cuttings, her fingers steady as she showed him the diagonal slice. See? Clean cut, like forgiving a grudge. Let it bleed a little, then heal. Evenings, they'd sit on the porch with sweet tea sweating in mason jars, her stories unfolding like petals. Growing up sharecropping in the Depression, the civil rights marches where hoses met flesh, the quiet vigils for friends lost to the plague years. Caleb shared scraps, his mama's lullabies, the sting of his daddy's righteousness, and found his voice wasn't poison after all. School was a minefield. Dothan High buzzed with the rumor mill. Faggot Hayes got the boot. Lockers slammed. Notes scrawled with slurs. But Caleb kept his head down, acing algebra and sketching wildflowers in the margins of his notebook. Margaret drove him every morning, her old truck's radio tuned to NPR, filling the cab with tales of Stonewall and Harvey Milk. "History's got your back, kid," she'd say. Even if the neighbors don't. He started believing it, a little. The ache for home never fully dulled, but it softened, like bruise fading under arnica. Summer brought heat that shimmered the air, and with it, Elijah. He rolled into town like a storm cloud. 17, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that sparked like live wires, fresh from Chicago on a family visit to kin. They met at the public pool, Caleb splashing half-heartedly in the shallow end while Elijah dominated the deep, his strokes slicing water like poetry. When Elijah surfaced, water sheeting off his locks, their gazes locked across the chlorine haze. "You swim like you're fighting the tide," Elijah called, grinning that crooked smile that hit Caleb like a gut punch. "Wanna race?" They didn't race. They talked instead, towels slung over shoulders, feet dangling in the kiddie pool. Elijah was out and proud, raised by a single mom who'd stormed City Hall for marriage equality, his walls plastered with Audre Lorde quotes and protest pins. Back home, we got pride parades that shut down Michigan Avenue. "What's your scene?" Caleb shrugged, heat rising in his cheeks that had nothing to do with the sun. "Porch swings and petunias." But Elijah saw through the deflection, the way Caleb's laugh hid hunger. By week's end, they were stealing kisses in the oak grove behind the library, Elijah's hands mapping Caleb's freckled shoulders like uncharted stars. It was messy, that first love, stolen moments in haylofts and under bleachers, hearts pounding to the rhythm of cicadas. Elijah whispered dreams of art school in New York, sketches of urban skylines spilling from his backpack. Caleb confessed fears of forever being the town queer, invisible except as cautionary tale. "You're a seed, Cal," Elijah murmured one twilight, fingers laced with his on the riverbank. "Planted rough, but you'll bloom fierce." When Elijah left for Chicago, promising letters and a future, Caleb clutched that promise like a talisman, the ache in his chest a sweet sour prelude to hope. Margaret watched it all with quiet eyes, slipping extra stamps into Caleb's pocket for replies, baking cornbread when the envelopes piled up thin. "Love's a root system," she said one night, shelling peas on the kitchen table. "Grows deep, even in poor soil." Caleb nodded, but doubt wormed in. What if he was just the summer fling, the small-town curiosity? The letters came steady at first, Elijah's scrawl alive with city grit, tales of jazz dives and drag shows but tapered as fall chilled the air. By Christmas, silence. Caleb threw himself into senior year, valedictorian dreams fueling late nights over textbooks. Margaret's health faltered, a cough that lingered into pneumonia, landing her in the county hospital with tubes snaking her arms. Don't you fuss, she rasped, gripping his hand. Get that diploma, then chase your stars. He did, cap and gown heavy with her absence in the audience. Her bedridden cheers relayed by phone. Graduation night. He drove straight to the hospital, diploma clutched like armor. Proud as punch. Sugar, she whispered, eyes glassy. But the doctor's words hung heavy. Stage 3, spreading fast. Margaret rallied through chemo, her bald head wrapped in scarves like a warrior queen. But the cancer was a thief, stealing breath in mouthfuls. Caleb balanced community college classes in mobile, nights crammed with biology notes, days at her bedside reading aloud from dog-eared paperbacks. Elijah's silence stretched to months. Then a year. Caleb's letters went unanswered, the postmark on the last one a mocking void. He told himself it was over, that city lights had eclipsed their riverbank vows. But the scar throbbed like a phantom limb. One rain-lashed afternoon, Margaret called him home early. She sat in her rocker by the window, a legal pad balanced on her lap, the notary's stamp fresh on the pages. This here's the deed to the house, she said, voice a gravel whisper. And a trust for your tuition. No arguments. Caleb's throat closed. You can't, it's yours. She fixed him with that steel magnolia stare. World took enough from me, darlin'. Won't let it take your shot, he signed, tears blurring the ink. And that night, as thunder rattled the panes, she slipped away in her sleep, peaceful, like drifting into a long nap under the wisteria. The funeral was a blur of casseroles and condolences, the church pews packed with nursery clients and distant kin who eyed Caleb like he was the reason for her fade. His father showed up at the graveside, Bible in hand, murmuring about forgiveness if Caleb repented. God's got a plan, the old man intoned, eyes averted. Caleb laughed, bitter as chicory. Your plan? You mean? The one that left me in the dirt. He walked away, the red clay sucking at his boots, vowing never to look back. With Margaret's bequest, he transferred to Auburn full-time, majoring in environmental science. Her love of soil turned to legacy. The campus sprawled green and gold under live oaks, a world away from Dothan's whispers. Frat boys hollered at football games. Sorority girls glittered like fireflies. But Caleb kept to the edges. Study groups in the library, volunteer shifts at the arboretum. He dated, a fumbling thing with a poli-sci major named Ryan. All awkward handholds and movie nights, but it fizzled. Ryan's closet too cramped for Caleb's out and proud scars. Then, senior year, Elijah reappeared. Not in a letter, but flesh and fire, striding into the campus coffee shop where Caleb pulled weekend shifts. Taller now, locks longer, dressed in a threadbare hoodie that screamed art student struggle. Cal? The name hung between them like smoke. Caleb froze, portafilter mid-tamp, heart slamming like a bass drum. Elijah. Holy shit. They stumbled through small talk, Elijah transferring south for a graphic design program, chasing cheaper tuition, but the air crackled, old sparks igniting dry tinder. That night, they ended up at Caleb's cramped apartment off campus, rain pattering the tin roof like impatient fingers. Beers cracked, stories spilled. Elijah's mom diagnosed with MS, the grind of community college in Chicago's shadow, the guilt that kept his replies buried under unopened mail. I was scared, man. Thought you'd moved on. Found someone steady. Caleb's laugh cracked. Steady? I've been a ghost since you ghosted. Honesty cracked the dam. Apologies tumbling, then kisses, hungry and redemptive, bodies rediscovering rhythms lost to time. It was wildfire after that. Elijah moved in after a week. Their shoebox apartment a canvas of his sketches. Bold murals of intertwined figures against urban sunsets. Caleb's wildflowers creeping in like quiet invaders. They built a life in the margins, weekends hiking the Talladega trails, hands linked under canopy shade, nights tangled in sheets, whispers tracing collarbones. Elijah's touch was a language of absolution, each caress erasing old doubts. "You're my anchor, Cal," he'd murmur, breath hot against his neck. Kept me from drifting, but Auburn's idol couldn't last. Graduation loomed, and with it, Elijah's internship offer. A flashy design firm in San Francisco, the kind that paid in stock options and bay views. Caleb had his own path, grad school acceptance at UC Berkeley. Margaret's trust stretched thin but defiant. "It's fate," Elijah said over takeout pad thai. "Eyes alight. Us. Together in the fog." Caleb nodded, stomach twisting. California called like a siren's song. Rainbow flags whipping in the wind, tech utopias promising reinvention. They packed U-Hauls in the sweltering June heat, Dothan a shrinking speck in the rearview. San Francisco hit like a fever dream. The apartment in the Mission was a walk-up with peeling paint and a view of graffiti-splashed alleys, but it thrummed with possibility. Elijah dove into the firm, schmoozing clients over oat milk lattes, his portfolio blooming viral on Instagram. Caleb buried in Berkeley's labs, dissecting soil samples for climate models, his thesis on resilient ecosystems a nod to Margaret's roses. Weekends were theirs, Golden Gate fog rolls, hands swinging over the bridge, Castro brunches where drag queens catcalled their PDAs. For the first time, Caleb felt seen not as the kicked-out kid, but as a man, loved fierce and full. Yet cracks spiderwebbed. Elijah's hours stretched, networking events bleeding into after-hours brainstorms, with a colleague named Theo Lithe, with cheekbones like switchblades and a laugh that lingered on the voicemail. Caleb brushed it off at first, buried in grant proposals, but the late nights piled like unanswered texts. One fog-shrouded evening, coming home early from a lab mixer, Caleb found them, Elijah and Theo on the fire escape, lips locked in the sodium glow of street lamps, hands roaming with the ease of habit. The world tilted. Caleb's shout echoed off the bricks. "What the fuck, Eli?" And Elijah startled like a deer, Theo slinking away with a murmured sorry. Explanations tumbled. "It was nothing, Cal, just stress release. You're my everything." But the lie hung sour, betrayal a blade twisting slow. Caleb packed a duffel that night, crashing on a classmate's couch, the city's hum mocking his unravel. Days blurred into radio silence. Elijah's please voicemails of desperation. "I fucked up. Come home." Caleb didn't. He threw himself into work. The lab's sterile hum a bomb, but sleep evaded, dreams replaying that kiss like a looped reel. Months ground on. Elijah's firm promoted him, junior creative director, champagne toasts in lofts overlooking the bay, but the victory tasted ash without Caleb. He showed up at Berkeley one crisp fall afternoon, flowers wilting in his grip, eyes hollowed by regret. "I quit the firm. Started my own thing, freelance. Remote. We can make it, Cal. Therapy. Whatever." Caleb wavered, the pull of history a tide. They tried counseling sessions in No Valley, date nights at oyster bars, but trust was a shattered vase, glue flaking under pressure. Elijah's touches turned tentative, Caleb's responses armored. The end came quiet, over cold coffee. I love you, but I can't unsee it. Elijah nodded, tears carving tracks. I know. My bad. Forever. Caleb moved north to Seattle for a postdoc. Rain, a constant companion washing salt from wounds. The University of Washington's Arboretum became sanctuary. Greenhouses humming with exotics, paths winding through ferns like veins. He dated sparingly. A barista with a poet's tongue, a professor's TA who ghosted after 3 weeks. But Elijah lingered, a specter in playlists and cityscapes. Letters arrived sporadically. Elijah's new life in LA, designing album covers for indie bands, confessions of solitude. Caleb burned them, ashes fertilizing his resolve. Years layered like sediment. At 28, Caleb's research hit stride. A paper on adaptive agriculture, cited in Nature, landing him a TEDx invite and whispers of tenure. He bought a craftsman bungalow in Capitol Hill, walls lined with Margaret's pressed flowers and his own photos, wild Alabama blooms thriving in Pacific soil. Power accrued quiet, grants flowing, students orbiting his charisma, a book deal simmering. But the past itched. A summons from his father's lawyer arriving like a thunderclap. Daddy Hayes, felled by a stroke. Estate to divvy. Prodigal son clause buried in legalese. Caleb stared at the envelope for days. The return address a punch to the solar plexus. Same farmhouse scrawl. Now trembling from age. He hadn't set foot in Dothan since Margaret's funeral. The town's gravity a black hole. But curiosity, or maybe masochism, pulled. He booked a flight, the red eye from Seattle-Tacoma to Birmingham, landing in dawn's peach haze. The rental car hummed south on I-65, peanut fields unfurling like old wounds, billboards preaching salvation amid fast food fluorescence. The farmhouse loomed unchanged, paint peeling like sunburnt skin, swing creaking empty on the porch. His father sat in the kitchen, wheelchair-bound, a husk of the bellowing patriarch, eyes milky, hands gnarled as kudzu roots. Caleb, he rasped, voice a wheeze. Didn't reckon you'd come. The lawyer, a slick Montgomery type in seersucker, cleared his throat. Mr. Hayes wishes to make amends. The will divides equally, provided. Reconciliation. Caleb's laugh was sharp. Amends? For tossing your son like trash? Sign me out, preacher. I don't need your blood money. He stormed out, gravel spitting under tires. But fate or irony waylaid him at the Dothan Inn, a no-tell-motel off the highway. Checking in, he collided with Elijah, duffel slung over shoulder, looking road-worn and resolute. Cal? Jesus. What are you? Words failed, the universe folding them into collision. Elijah was back for a cousin's wedding, crashing cheap after a bar crawl. Over lukewarm diner coffee at midnight, truth spilled. Elijah's freelance empire crumbled in the pandemic crash, gigs drying like California reservoirs. A string of flings that soured to dust. The ache for Caleb a constant, gnawing underbelly. I never stopped loving you, Elijah said, fingers tracing the formica scars. That betrayal? My dumbass fear of settling, thinking the grass was greener. It wasn't. Caleb's walls trembled, years of armor cracking. You broke me, Eli. Left me piecing shards while you chased lights. They talked till dawn. Ghosts exorcised in the sodium glow. Forgiveness a tentative bridge, not a cure. By checkout, they'd exchanged numbers, promises of maybe hanging fragile as morning mist. Caleb extended his stay, renting a cabin by the Choctawhatchee River. The waters murmur a lullaby to turmoil. He visited Margaret's grave daily, wildflowers spilling from her plot like defiant joy. His father reached out through a nurse, letters scrawled shaky, apologies laced with scripture. I was blind, son. Feared losing you to hell more than to hurt. Caleb read them by firelight, tears salting the page, but response eluded. Power, he'd learned, wasn't vengeance. It was choosing grace over grudge. Elijah lingered post-wedding, the cousins' nuptials a catalyst, vows exchanged under oaks, rings glinting like second chances. They fell into old rhythms. Fishing at dawn, lines cast lazy into lazy currents. Evenings on the cabin porch, stars pricking the velvet sky. Touches reignited slow, fingers brushing knuckles, then palms, then pulling close in the chill. Making love by the riverbank, moonlight silvering skin, felt like reclamation, bodies remembering, hearts hedging bets. This time, no running, Elijah whispered, forehead to Caleb's. I'm all in, but Dothan stirred shadows. Whispers followed, Hayes boy back with that colored fella. Flauntin' it, echoes of old venom. At the farmer's market, a gaggle of church ladies crossed streets, purses clutched like shields. Caleb's father, hearing through the nurse, demanded a visit. Bring him. Face the family. Elijah balked. Your call, Cal. But I'm no trophy for redemption. Yet Caleb insisted, armor forged in California fires. The prodigal dinner unfolded in the farmhouse kitchen. Scents of fried chicken and collards a time warp. Extended kin filled chairs. Aunts with perm-stiff hair. Uncles nursing beers. Eyes darting between curiosity and contempt. Daddy Hayes presided from his spot at the head. Voice frail but fervent. Family's blood, thicker than sin. We've prayed for this. Caleb sat straight. Elijah's hand a secret anchor under the table. Introductions stuttered. This is Elijah, my partner. And the room iced, forks pausing mid-air. Aunt Gertie broke first. Her drawl syrup sour. Partner? Like that way? Murmurs rippled. Uncle Ray's guffaw barking. Boy, you gone Hollywood queer on us. Elijah tensed, but Caleb's grip steadied. Yeah, Aunt Gert. That way. The way God made me. Same as he made y'all stubborn. The table erupted, scriptures hurled like grenades. Accusations of corruption flying. Daddy Hayes raised a trembling hand. Enough. I cast him out once. Won't abide it again. Silence fell, heavy as humidity. Son, you and Elijah. You're welcome here. If you want. It wasn't absolution, too many scars for that. But a truce, fragile as spun glass. As kin filed out, grumbles trailing, Caleb lingered, facing his father alone. Why now? The old man sighed, eyes distant. Stroke cleared the fog. Saw my hypocrisy, how fear choked love. Margaret. She wrote me, you know, before she passed. Said you'd thrive, make me proud. She was right. Caleb's throat burned. You hurt me, Dad. Deep, a nod. Tears carving ruts. I know. Forgive if you can. Or don't. Just live free. Outside, Elijah waited on the porch swing, the night alive with crickets. How'd it go? Caleb slid beside him, head on shoulder. Like swallowing nails. But maybe. Healing. They drove back to the cabin. Windows down, FM radio crooning Johnny Cash, I walk the line. In bed, limbs entwined, the world narrowed to breath and heartbeat, betrayal's echo fading to whisper. Word spread, Dothan's vines twisting news, haze air, risen scholar, claiming his queer throne. Invites trickled, LGBTQ meetups at the community center, pride picnic in Montgomery. Caleb spoke at the first, voice steady. I was thrown out at 16. A woman named Margaret caught me. She taught me roots run deep, even in cracked ground. Applause thundered, Elijah's pride a beacon in the crowd. But power drew predators. Tommy, that long-ago kiss, now a used car salesman with a beer gut, cornered them at a bar. Still playin' for the other team. Cal? Shame. Pretty as you are. Elijah bristled, but Caleb shut it down cool. Happier than you, Tommy. Drive safe. Yet undercurrents swirled. Elijah's phone buzzed with LA callbacks. Big agency sniffing his old portfolio. Dangling 6 figures. Tempting, he admitted over breakfast. Eyes conflicted. But us. Caleb nodded, fork pausing. Go if it calls. I'll root here. Finish Dad's estate. Elijah searched his face. You sure? Last time, you ran from us. This is chasing dreams together. A kiss sealed it, but doubt lingered, a shadow on the sun. Caleb dove into legacy. The farm's soil tested, plans for sustainable plots, peanuts rotated with cover crops, a nod to his research. His father improved, therapy coaxing steps, conversations thawing to anecdotes, boyhood fishing trips, Mama's peach cobbler. One evening, wheeling Daddy to the porch, Caleb asked the unasked. Why'd it scare you so, me being gay? A pause, sunset gilding the rails. Thought it'd damn you. And me, for failing to raise you straight. Pride's a hell of a drug, son. Worse than moonshine. Caleb squeezed his shoulder. Love's the cure. Took me years to learn. Elijah jetted to LA for meetings, returning bronzed and buzzing, offer in pocket. Remote hybrid. We split time. Summers here, winters coast. Caleb pulled him close. Deal. But no more secrets. Nights deepened their bond. Slow dances in the kitchen to Motown. Bodies swaying to Ain't No Mountain High Enough. Elijah sketched them, entwined in wildflower fields, power lines framing like halos. Our story, he said. Redemption arc, but climax brewed in quiet betrayal's echo. Caleb's book deal solidified, roots of resilience. From red clay to reclamation, tours booked, media bites. Podcast host, digging dirt, unearthed Elijah's past. The Theo affair splashed in a blind item, anonymized but barbed. Whispers hit Dothan like chaff. That boy's man cheated. Just like I said, queers can't keep it clean. Kin called, concern laced with I told you so. Elijah crumbled, voicemails frantic. It's old news, Cal. Don't let it poison. Caleb flew to LA mid-tour, the sprawl a glittering trap. Elijah met him at LAX. I shadowed, a bottle of rose chilling for truth night. The condo sleek lines, ocean glimpses, felt like a stage set, scripts half-written. Over glasses clinking, Elijah unloaded. The affair wasn't singular. Post-breakup flings blurred lines, a spiral of validation after his career cratered. I was lost, Cal. Chasing shadows of us. Betrayal layered fresh. But Caleb saw the man beneath, vulnerable, not villain. We all spiral. Question is, Climb out together. They did, haltingly. Couples therapy via Zoom, with a Castro sage who unpacked closets literal and figurative. Elijah stepped back from gigs, focusing on passion projects. Murals for shelters, portraits of queer elders. Caleb wove him into the book. Anonymous interludes of love's fractures, mended stronger. Back in Dothan for holidays, they hosted kin, turkey thawing old feuds, Elijah's cornbread earning nods. Daddy Hayes, mobile now with a cane, pulled Caleb aside post-meal. He's good for you. Like Margaret was. A lump rose. Yeah. Teaches me flying. I ground him. Power peaked in spring. Caleb's TED Talk, From Exile to Ecosystem, Thriving After Rejection, went viral, clips ricocheting through feeds, shares from GLAAD to rural co-ops. Invites flooded. White House panels on LGBTQ youth, university keynotes. He founded the Margaret Ellis Foundation, grants for displaced queer kids, safe houses in Bible Belt pockets. Elijah designed the logo, intertwined roots blooming defiant, tagline planted in grace. Dothan pride burgeoned under their nudge. A first-ever march, rainbow flags fluttering past steeples, Caleb and Elijah arm in arm at the front. But conflict crested unbidden. Tommy, pickled on spite, escalated. Anonymous posts on local forums, dredging Caleb's deviance with doctored photos. Elijah cropped as predator. The sheriff's office shrugged. Free speech, son. But threats trickled. Slashed tires on Caleb's truck. A brick through the nursery window honoring Margaret. Elijah raged. We fight back. Sue the bastard. Caleb hesitated. Powers weight heavy. Or rise above. Show 'em roots outlast storms. The storm broke at the farm. A rally Tommy fomented. Protect our children signs. Megaphones blaring psalms. Swelled the driveway. Kin divided in the fray. Daddy Hayes wheeled out. Voice cracking over the din. This here's my land, my son. Get off or face warrants. Chaos swirled, shoves, chants, but Caleb climbed the porch. Mic from his pocket. Voice steady as oak. I was your kid once. Thrown out for loving like this. He pulled Elijah close. Kiss public and unyielding. Gasps rippled. Then claps from unexpected quarters. Aunt Gertie, teary, cousins nodding slow. Tommy lunged, fist cocked. Freak! But Elijah sidestepped, diffusing with a calm. Hate's heavy, man. Lay it down. Deputies hauled him off. Charges pending. The crowd dispersed, embers of dialogue smoldering. That night, bruises fading, Caleb and Elijah walked the fields, stars a canopy. You were fierce, Elijah said. Power, real kind. Caleb smiled, hand in hand. Ours, yet intimacy frayed under glory's glare. Tours pulled Caleb east. Elijah's LA pulls west, missed calls stacking like regrets. A Seattle stop, post-lecture glow. Caleb swiped right on impulse. A fellow academic, sharp wit over craft beers. One night became two, guilt a morning fog. Back home, confession spilled over dawn coffee. It was escape, Eli. Not you. Elijah's face crumpled, old wounds gaping. History rhymes, Cal. Am I always the fool? The fight raged epic. Accusations hurled, silences thicker than fog. Elijah packed, flight to Chicago for space, leaving sketches curled on the fridge like accusations. Caleb drowned in work, foundation expansions, soil summits in D.C. But void echoed, Elijah's absence a hollow in the chest. Letters flew, pen and paper, old school raw, Caleb's I miss your chaos, Elijah's forgive my fragility. Therapy solo now, unpacking power's poison, success as shield, love as risk. Reunion brewed at a New York gala, foundation fundraiser, skyline glittering indifferent. Caleb spotted him across the room. Elijah, locks crowned with silver threads, pitching murals to donors. Their eyes met, gravity undeniable. Over champagne flutes, apologies flowed. I cheated fear, not you. We both did. Dance floor claimed them, slow sway to Norah Jones, bodies sinking like forgotten song. Hotel room whispered promises. No more running. Build from ruins. They relocated hybrid, Dothan base, quarterly escapes. Elijah's art flourished. Exhibits in Atlanta, commissions for pride flags nationwide. Caleb's book hit bestsellers, sequels seeding. Daddy Hayes softened fully, inviting them weekly, checkers on the porch, Elijah trouncing with grins. Smart one, this, the old man chuckled. Kin wove in, nieces drawing rainbows, uncles sharing war stories sans judgment. Climax crested subtle, in a hospital vigil. Daddy's heart faltered, whiskey ghosts calling him home. Caleb and Elijah bedside, hands linked over the rail. Proud. Boys, he murmured, eyes on their laced fingers. Loved wrong, but loved hard. He slipped at dawn, peaceful as Margaret. The funeral swelled diverse. Queer activists beside deacons, toasts blending gospel and show tunes. Caleb eulogized. He learned late, but love's a late bloomer too. Estate settled equitable. Farm deeded joint. Sustainable co-op blooming. Youth programs tilling hope. Betrayal scar faded to story. Fueling talks. We broke, but mended mosaic. Elijah's ring appeared one equinox eve. Under wisteria revived. Simple band. Engraved roots entwined. Marry me, Kel. Power shared. Tears yes. Kiss ceiling. Wedding wove simple. Riverbank ceremony. Wildflowers crowning arches. Kin and chosen family ringside. Vows echoed Margaret's lessons. In cracked soil, we thrive. Rings exchanged to applause. Elijah's kiss a vow renewed. Honeymoon wandered Route 66 West. Motels neon lit. Laughter reclaiming miles. Back home. Life layered rich. Foundation chapters sprouting nationwide. Caleb keynoting UN panels on queer resilience. Elijah's gallery show. Exiles bloom. Sold out MoMA. Portraits pulsing emotion. Years unfurled generous. At 35, Caleb mentored a Dothan kid, 17. Backpack scarred. Eyes wide with fear. She took me in, he told the boy. Arm around Elijah. Now we pay forward. The cycle spun. Power not hoarded but halved. Shared in boardrooms and backyards. Elijah's MS scare. Echo of his mom's. Tested. But trials triumphed. Vulnerability bonding deeper. One autumn. Revisiting the Piggly Wiggly now remodeled. Aisles gleaming. Caleb spotted the payphone relic. Ghost of that desperate dawn. He pulled Elijah close. Public and proud. Here you saved me, he murmured. Elijah grinned. Locks tickling. Nah. You saved yourself. I just tagged along. Laughter bubbled. Free as fireflies. Legacy bloomed eternal. The Ellis Hayes Arboretum. Acres reclaimed for education. Queer history trails winding through natives. Benches etched with stories. Caleb's second book, entwined. Love's long arc, wove their tale anonymized. Humanistic hymn to forgiveness. Critics hailed. A Southern Gothic redeemed. Roots in redemption. In quiet eaves. Porch swing creaking. They'd reflect. Betrayals as branches pruned for growth. Conflicts compost for stronger soil. We made it, Elijah'd say. Head on Caleb's lap. Power? It's this. Caleb trace his jaw. Voice soft. Us. Always. And in the red clay heart of America, two men loved loud. Lives a testament. Thrown out. Taken in. Returned not to conquer, but to cultivate. Grace, after all, was the fiercest bloom.